Cynthia is an award-winning author, an international lecturer, and a universal designer with over 30 years of experience. Her mission is to improve health and longevity through universal design, which is designed for people of all ages and abilities. Some of her projects include the Betty Ford Center, automotive interior design for Toyota, the UCLA Medical Center, the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute, Laguna Honda, a 1,200-bed hospital for rehabilitation and long-term care, a universal design exhibit for the Smithsonian with Julia Child, the Kohler, you know Kohler, bathroom, kitchen appliances, the Kohler Design Showroom, in which over 2 million consumers have learned about universal design. She teaches 2 courses in the Graduate Architecture Department of Harvard University Graduate School of Design and has written 3 books. Her universal home was featured on the cover of the New York Times Magazine. So I give you Cynthia, and be prepared for an eye-opening lecture. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I start out every presentation talking about my brother. I have a brother who has schizophrenia. And when he was a young man, basically late teens, early 20s, it was as if someone walked up in back of him and injected him with a drug, and he became a different person within about a 2-week period of time. We had absolutely no clue that this was going to occur. He was doing great in school. He was tall, good-looking, athletic, had just graduated from high school, was going on to college, and suddenly we were faced with a person that we couldn't even recognize. This happened in the 60s, and we had 2 choices. We could institutionalize my brother, or we could keep him at home. So of course we tried to keep him at home, but my brother's 6'9". He can be really hard to handle, and we were finally forced to put him in an institution. I saw firsthand the impact of an institutional environment on a person's life. My brother was disabled by that institution, and I can tell you how I know. It took them years to stabilize him in the institution before they brought him back home again. And then he was home for a little while, and he had another setback, and we thought we were going to have to put him in an institution again. Only now there was a halfway house with house parents, a supportive residential environment in his neighborhood, and they were able to stabilize him within 3 weeks. 3 weeks versus the years in the institutional environment. That's the kind of impact that interior designers and architects have with every design decision that we make. We create people with disabilities, or we can empower people so they can do what they want to do and they are no longer disabled. We can eliminate disability by design. We all have physical differences. That's not the issue. Everyone in this audience has some difference from someone that you're sitting next to. The issue is whether or not you can do what you want to do. And through design, through great design for home health care, we can allow people to do what they want to do and not be disabled. That's point number 1. The second point I want to make is that we have the creative skills to visually integrate all of the ideas that I'm going to talk about today. And if they're not visually integrated, nobody wants this stuff in their home or office. You know, you think if you put in the grab bars and build the ramp and widen the doors, that that's going to solve the problem. I can tell you firsthand, my dad would not let me put grab bars in his bathroom, even though he desperately needed them. Me, Miss Accessibility Specialist, can't get the dad to put the grab bars in because he didn't want to ruin his bathroom. He didn't want to turn his house into a hospital. So this is a big issue. It doesn't seem like it would be, but many of these products are emblems of age and disability. They stigmatize people. They point out their physical differences. We even go further than that. We segregate people by design. We put all of the disabled people up the ramp while everyone else goes in the front door. You know, that's not universal design. Universal design is one design that works for all people. Tall people, short people, the person sitting next to you, children, people with low vision, people with low hearing, wheelchair users. Yes, it's possible. I mean, universal design is truly perfect design, and you're not going to get there, but you're going to approach it, and that's what you really have to do in design. So it's important to work with someone who can use their creative skills to visually integrate these ideas so people will really use the stuff. The last point I want to make is probably the most important. And that is that this is a way to make an enormous contribution, to really make a difference. I started out in high-end residential interior design, basically making rich people look richer. Now, that's not what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about improving the quality of people's lives, no matter how much money they make. But that isn't what I was doing. I was putting status symbols in people's homes, and I thought somehow I would find eternal satisfaction by doing that. And let me tell you, it didn't happen. So I switched to contract. And I felt like maybe I could make a difference there. And I built up my business until I had a dozen employees, which is a good-sized small business. Spent all my time beating the bushes for work to keep those 12 people busy and working with bankers and lawyers. And I sort of graduated out of my area of expertise until I reached the point in my 30s when I really didn't like what I was doing. I wanted out of interior design. But I had a dozen employees. You know, what are you going to do? So I stayed, and I hung on for like 5 years with these employees. And one morning I woke up and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I went in, fired all the employees, something I'm not proud of to this day, walked away from a thriving business. I had it in a Victorian restoration that I'd restored by hand. I was highly invested in this, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And I said, you know, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? I didn't have children. I knew I couldn't. I knew early. We decided we were going to make our contribution in our career. We were going to make a difference in our career. It was not happening. So one of the employees that I fired invited me into a Bible study. Now, I'm not going to try to impose my value system on you here, but I came out of that study with a very focused mission. And that mission was to improve the lives of older and disabled people using interior design. Now, I'm here to tell you that that issue of mission and purpose is a spiritual issue. It's not something you're going to resolve by jumping from job to job or major to major and hope that you land into it. At least that was my experience. And, you know, the real miracle here is that I stayed on that mission for 35 years. I have sort of that designer mind. We jump around a lot. We like to try new things all the time. It's really hard to keep us on the same path for a really long period of time. For 35 years, I have stayed on this path. Why? I love what I do. It's that simple. I am so thankful that I was able to find this and have worked into it. So I'm not here to talk you into doing what I'm doing. But what I want to tell you is that the reason I'm here is to convince the interior design students primarily to design all of their housing with some minimums of universal design so that they will accommodate home health care, so that people can age in place, so that people can stay in their homes and not go to nursing homes. And to do this all invisibly, so they're not ruining the project, and to not make a big deal about it with their clients, just slip it in, and I've given them 6 basic things that I'll go over with you that I want to have in every house. If they will put those 6 things in new construction, it won't cost more than 5%, and it'll facilitate all sorts of health care in the home, which is what I'm talking to you about today. So let me run through my project with you a little bit and give you some of these ideas. This project took me 10 years to complete. I spent my entire inheritance on it, and it has over 200 aspects that support health and longevity in my home. The reason it cost so much and it took so much time is we have really lousy research in interior design and architecture. Our research stinks. And I made all these mistakes, and I kept having to tear things out and redo them. But I wanted it to be sort of a laboratory as I learned to do these things. And I wanted to have something that I could end up with and use to train other people. When that New York Times article came out, I had 250,000 hits on my website the first day. So millions of people have learned about universal design from this project, which is exactly what I wanted. That's why I spent the money and the time on it. Dog Fuzzlo, he made it to the cover of the New York Times. See him sitting in there? This is the image that was on the cover. So I'll talk to you about my project goals. This is an interesting one. I don't want to just accommodate disability after it occurs. I want to prevent it. I want to look at ways that your house can motivate you to healthy behaviors, such as eating more fruits and vegetables, cooking things properly, exercising. How can your house proactively motivate you? How can your house prevent accidents, prevent slip and fall? How can your house prevent re-injury, which happens so frequently after you've had a surgery? People come home and they get re-injured, and then when they go back in for the second surgery, it's never as good as the first surgery. So how can your house prevent that? That's what I was really interested in. Secondly, I wanted to make it visitable by guests with disabilities. It was an existing house on several levels, so I couldn't make it totally accessible. I was able to put all the major living areas on one level, which obviously you need to do if you're going to age in place and have home health care. But I wanted to be able to entertain people in wheelchairs when they would come. And I'll show you some ways that I made that work, even though we have several levels. I wanted it to be adaptable to our changing needs. I'm 6 feet, my husband's 6'3". 36-inch high counters do not work for us. So I took them all up to 42, which is way too high for most of you in this audience. Those counters are my husband's favorite thing in the entire house. It really helps us. But I also wanted to be able to sell the house to somebody shorter or maybe to a wheelchair user. So I tried to make the counters adaptable, and I'll show you how I did that as we go along. And then finally, I wanted to make it regenerative. So about 4 years ago, I woke up one morning and I had a pain in my hip. And I went into the doctor and he said, "You need a hip replacement." I said, "A hip replacement? You got to be kidding me. I'm like in my late 50s at this point. There's no way." So of course I went to another doctor hoping for a better opinion, and nope, you need a hip replacement. So I was in the hospital getting my hip replacement. My husband slips on the racquetball court, tears his Achilles tendon. So he's on one of those scooter things. You know what I'm talking about, where you scoot along with your knee? And I'm coming out of the hospital on a walker, and the doctor's saying, "Who's going to take care of you guys? You know, you've got nobody at home to care for you. You have to go to the rehab hospital," which is a euphemism for a nursing home, you know. And I said, "Oh, no, you're not putting me in the home." I said, "You haven't seen my home," you know. So I went through all 200 items, and he said, "Okay, I'm convinced, you know. You can go home." So I went home, and I went through my own rehab program, working with a PT and doing a lot of it at home. And I ended up going on a multi-sport trip to Alaska 3 months after my hip surgery, because my house prevented re-injury, because my house facilitated the exercise and all the things that I needed to do and made it fun for me to do these things. And that's the key. You've got to make it fun. And I'll tell you some ideas on how to make that fun as we go. Come on, Guy, let's move. Uh-oh, we're stuck. No, there we go. Oh, I know, I forgot to tell you, green and universal. I tried to combine green design with universal design. And there are actually some nice intersections. Older people need higher ambient temperatures, maybe as high as 78 degrees. But they don't want to pay for that energy, you know, to get it up that high. So how can you generate some of your own energy? How can you conserve the energy that you do generate to keep it in the house? So you can see that nice mix. Also, older people like to save, so it's a real easy sale to get them to recycle. You know, they want to save things anyway, so it makes it really nice. So anyway, the first thing I did is I put passive solar greenhouses across the whole front of the house. These are wonderful. If you're building a new house, I don't know if it works here, because in Colorado we have over 300 days of sunshine a year, so we get a ton of sunshine. But those things almost heat my entire house. They're absolutely great. The top is active solar hot water that goes under the floors, so we have that nice radiant heat. We have nice warm floors that we walk on. You don't have the drafts of forced air, which I really like. It also preheats the water for the hot tub, preheats the hot water in the house. My energy costs, we're averaging about $69 a month. All of our other neighbors are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month for energy. So it really can save you some money if you do it right. We're about to add some PV panels too, and I'm looking at an electric car with PV panels. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to go there yet, but PV is a little expensive so far, but we'll see. So I put a wall of glass in every room. Now, we're in a beautiful location with lots of views. I believe that beauty reduces stressful thoughts. Stress does a lot of damage. You know, all of you that are in healthcare know that. My mom was the coordinator of Craig Rehab Hospital in Denver for 30 years, and she said every time somebody got cancer, they had gone through a stressful period before that. Now, I'm sure that isn't 100% true, but it does certainly contribute. So if you can keep those stress levels down, it's great. So I think views of nature are one of the best ways to keep the stress levels down. We're also capturing natural light, which is saving energy. I also use natural materials. This is wool carpet, grass cloth, leather. All those things are biodegradable. Now, these are expensive things, but what I want to tell you is half of the 200 items that I'm putting in this house cost less than $50. Half of them do. So, and the rest of them are available at any price point. I have a magnetic induction cooktop that I'm going to tell you about. It's expensive. I just saw one that came out on the market, a lower end one, that ended up costing $600. I even found a standalone one that sits on your countertop that costs less than $100. So you can do these things at any price point that you want to. Don't feel like the slides that I'm showing you are too expensive and it's something that you can't do, because you can do it, and I'm here to try to convince you to do it in your next house so that you can see the advantages of a house that actually supports health and longevity. This is our kitchen, and this is 30% recycled material. We have Santos on the walls. That looks like rosewood, but it's not a rainforest wood. It didn't deplete any rainforests. It grows prolifically in Central America. So we tried to use materials that were as green as possible. Here's what the kitchen looked like before. My cousin Kathleen came and looked at our kitchen and tried to think of something nice to say. She said, "Oh, this looks so retro," you know. I knew then it was time to remodel when Kathleen came up with retro. So this is what it looked like after. It's the exact same location. We popped that back wall out where the refrigerator is. There was a deck behind it. We went out on the deck. And one of the neatest things about this kitchen is I put the dirty dishes around the corner. So I've got a cleanup sink back here. So you never see dirty dishes. This always looks like this. You know, it looks really clean all the time. It's not clean. There are dirty dishes around the corner, but it was kind of a fun idea that worked out. So let's talk about how you can make your project support health and longevity. And as I said, the key is making it fun to stay healthy. I tell stories about my brother, and I can do this with his permission. We had a very hard time getting him to bathe. Now, the reason is he's on mega doses of psychotropic drugs. Every movement is like operating in a vat of molasses. His motor functions are really slowed down. His coordination is limited. So you put him in a small shower with efficacy problems on the controls and all of this, all the side effects of all these meds. And it was really difficult for him to shower. Plus, he's 6'9". He doesn't fit in a small shower. So I thought I'd get him a membership at a health spa with a big open ADA compliant shower. Thought that would solve the problem. Didn't solve the problem until he discovered the hot tub. And they wouldn't let him in the hot tub until he showered. So the whole problem went away. It made a healthy behavior, bathing, fun to do. Do you see what I'm saying? So that was like my first clue. How can I make healthy behaviors fun in the home? So I'll show you some of the things that I tried to do. First of all, I planned all these appliances in the kitchen that make it fun to do healthy cooking. So this is the induction cooktop that I talked about right here. And the reason that makes it fun is I have a wok on it, and it makes it fun to stir fry. And the great thing about induction cooking is that it basically cooks without heat. It uses magnetic energy, and I'll talk to you about that more in just a minute. So as you go around the corner, I have a refrigerator here with dual refrigeration. If you push a button in one of the drawers of the refrigerator, it will keep vegetables fresh for 3 weeks, which is healthy. This is a steam oven. There's certain things that you can't cook in a regular oven. For example, if you like those European breads with the crunchy crust, you can only do that in a steam oven. Or if you're keeping food warm for a very long period of time, steam ovens are fantastic. And if you want to steam vegetables, steam fish, that's the way to keep the nutrients in. So it's actually very healthy cooking. And in fact, this is an in-counter cooker. I'm sorry, a cooking sink. It's an in-sink cooker right here. Here's what it looks like. This is Gwyneth Paltrow's favorite appliance, by the way, in case you care. But it's kind of neat because you can layer it and you can steam things in it, Or you can do all-day cooking, like crock-pot cooking, by having a double boiler, water in the bottom. You can boil pasta in it in this sort of a net thing. And when you're through with the cooking, you just turn the knob, and all the water drains out of the bottom of the sink. And it's a cooking sink is what it is. So it encourages you to do all those kinds of healthy cooking. You can even make yogurt in it because it's so easy to control. And you're going to see more of these on the market. This is real high-end, and typically we see the products come out in the high-end, and then they work their way down as the induction cooktop is doing right now. I'm supposed to have herbs growing in the kitchen so I can snip herbs, and that would encourage me to, eat more green things. I can't get the stupid herbs to grow here. Those are philodendrons, by the way. They're not herbs. Only philodendrons will grow in my kitchen, but maybe someday I'll find an herb that will grow with those light levels. About induction cooking. It's the fastest cooking appliance that you can get. It'll boil water in less than 30 seconds. The surface stays ice cold, which is why it's universal, because it's super safe. Kids leaning on a hot appliance, or older people leaning on it easily. That doesn't happen. It cooks right through to the pan. So while this wok is cooking, I can actually slide my fingers completely underneath it, even on these metal strips, and they're all ice cold. You can also spread out newspaper and cook right through the newspaper, and the newspaper won't burn. So if you're doing something like pasta sauce with it spattering around, there's no cleanup afterwards. Or even with the stir fry, you're going to have spatters. So it's really nice from that perspective too. It uses less energy than gas or an electric, regular electric cooktop. So there are just a lot of advantages to it. And what's really cool is when you turn it off, it stops cooking immediately. So if something's burning, you turn it off and it stops burning, just like that. Chefs love this because it gives them so much control. So this is the future of cooktops. This is where we're going. So can you see the little buttons right here? One is for chicken, one is for fish, one is for vegetables. So they're all different temperatures that they make this drawer to preserve things. Also, as people age, they lose their sense of smell. 80% of older people have no sense of smell at all, no olfactory sense. So they can't tell if food is going bad in the refrigerator. So we make sure that the refrigerators are very well lighted, and the shelves are very shallow, so things don't get lost at the back of the refrigerator, and you'd have to depend on your sense of smell to find them. That's my hubby. And we grow some of our own fruits and vegetables in the greenhouses. So if you grow your own fruits and vegetables, you're going to eat more fruits and vegetables. This is one of the most beautiful rooms in the house, and this is where I put all my exercise equipment. So I didn't put it down in the basement somewhere. I put it somewhere where I would really enjoy the views and the flowers, and I would have nice music. And I even have a hot tub on this deck up here that rewards you if you do your exercise, kind of like I did with my brother, This works really well to get me to exercise. So it's this is a great example of how a house can motivate you to a healthy behavior. We want to make it visitable and adaptable to future needs. And this is something we try to put into every house, not just houses for older and disabled people, but every house. We want an accessible entrance on an accessible route through the common use areas. See that area rug? Those things are lethal. You have a person who is in a wheelchair, pushes up against the area rug, it blocks the front wheels. You have someone in a power chair, they wheel over it, it sucks it up into the power chair. Now it's stuck in the power chair. You got to dump the person out of the power chair, pull the mangled area rug out. And even worse than that, you have an older person shuffling along, dragging their feet. They catch a toe, they go down, and they break their hip on the area, on the hard surface flooring next to the area rug. So this area rug is recessed and permanently installed. So it's exactly the same height as the floor. All you have to do is leave the floor tile out in that spot. It's very easy. It's sitting on the plywood subfloor. I don't know why it's not done more often. But those things are tremendous tripping hazards, and the tape doesn't work so well. You can put double stick tape on. About a month later, it's coming up, so it's not really the solution. We don't have 1/8 of an inch change of elevation anywhere in the main use areas of the house. There are no tripping hazards. There are no thresholds. I got rid of all the thresholds at the doors. And I'll talk to you more about that in a minute. But you can get rid of all of this stuff, and I'll tell you how to do it. So this is our formal dining room. We put it in a lowered area because we don't use it that much. We had this existing low area. We put our formal entrance in a lower area. Our accessible entrance is separate from our formal entrance. But I still wanted to be able to entertain wheelchair users and to get them down into this dining room. So what I did is I put a box right here. This is basically a box that slides away from the wall. It's on glides, you know, so it's held in place. But you can pull it out. And then you've got a 14-inch drop right here, 2 treads. So you rent a platform lift. I have the special purpose outlet up there. You plug the platform lift in, it takes you right down into the dining room. And I would rent it for the weekend if I were entertaining somebody in a wheelchair or had someone in my fellowship program, the program that Martha's in, coming to my house to study. You know, you could make that work. Now, if I were end up in a wheelchair, I can also adapt it. So that's what I mean by adaptable. We have lights in every intersection between the tread and riser on every step except that box because it's not wired in, you know. So every step has this. That's cost nothing. That's a $10 item. It's a little rope light, you know. Put it in. I've already had one guest say to me, "You saved a fall." I was about to trip, and that light in the stair saved a fall. You can see how clearly it lights that edge right here. Can you see? And then notice the handrails with the extensions top and bottom, so that when someone gets off of the bottom stair, they still have something to hang on to as they're walking forward. And the same on the top stair. Now, you wouldn't do the handrail on this side because it would extend out into the traffic area, you know, and it would reduce the flow. This floor is called quartzite. It's really hard to find a slip-resistant floor. I use a lot of carpet because it's very slip-resistant and it cushions the blow if people go down. You know, it's very safe, and you can actually add a big-time antimicrobial to it and use it in any space. I've even carpeted bathrooms in assisted living, which sounds gross because 40% of the population is incontinent, you know. But those antimicrobials work so well that there is absolutely no fungal or bacterial growth taking place in that carpet. And I can tell you how I know, because I did an experiment in assisted living. I had my offices there, and I sent in a sample of carpet that had basically been peed on for an entire year. And I sent in a brand new piece of carpet and had them both cultured at the lab, and there was no difference in bacterial or fungal growth on either piece because the antimicrobials were so effective. That's why we use carpet in healthcare. And the main reason I even considered it in a bathroom in assisted living is, where are all the hard surfaces? Where does all the injury take place? You know, where are all the slick surfaces? So that's the bathroom, and it saves a lot of falls. So I'm not telling you to carpet your bathrooms, but I'm just telling you, don't be afraid to use carpet. If it's properly specified with an antimicrobial and a moisture barrier, and if you seal your subfloor, if it's a plywood subfloor with an acrylic polymer, no, I'm saying that wrong, a concrete subfloor with an acrylic polymer, and you inject the antimicrobial to the back of the carpet when it's manufactured so it doesn't wash off every time you wash it, you can use it just about anywhere. But this floor is called quartzite. Some people call it silver slate. This is so slip resistant, I can pour water on it, jump on it with my cowboy boots, and yes, I occasionally wear cowboy boots. I live in Colorado, okay? So jump on it with cowboy boots and I will not slip. It is really, really an anti-slip floor. Another one that works well is an unglazed ceramic mosaic tile. All of the tiles have coefficient of friction ratings, which are basically lousy ratings. I tell people to take a crutch, put it at a 70-degree angle, and see if it slips. You know, if it doesn't slip, and try it both wet and dry, then you can really have a slip-resistant floor. Next is usable doors. Now, you may know this, that you need to leave space next to the side of the door for a wheelchair user to approach that door and open it up. 24 is better than 18, so we try to do that. But we hit places where you can't do it, like the end of a hallway. You don't have that space next to the door. At least I didn't in one of my hallways. So we put in an automatic door closer, which you can do for a couple $100s these days. These things are not very expensive, and you can solve the problem. So again, for home health care, you need to be thinking about how you can make the whole house usable from a wheelchair. You may not need to put it in now, but when you're building, go ahead and wire for it, just in case, you know. So I want to talk to you about thresholds. Thresholds are not a problem for wheelchair users. If you do an ADA compliant threshold, 1/2 inch high, 1 and 2 bevel, you're fine, you know. But that's not the problem. It's the older people shuffling along, dragging their feet. My Aunt Minna had stepped over this same threshold her entire life. One time she didn't pick up her foot, caught her toe on it, went down, broke her femur in her 80s. She was in the hospital forever, then in a nursing home for about a year. She was a physical therapist, and she fought like a dog to come back. You know, she made it back to the home. But these tiny little things can truly disable people. So what we do is we either put a trench drain across the front of the door if you've got a big water problem, or we use what's called a door bottom. A door bottom is sort of like a seal you put on the bottom of the door, but it's got this little button on the side of it so that when you open the door, it recesses up. This costs less than $50, and when you close the door, it drops down and seals really tightly all the way across without having that threshold to hold the water in. So you don't need thresholds. I don't have any thresholds in my house. They're just big tripping hazards. So next we want to look at light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, all of these controls. What I want you to do is analyze your controls with a closed fist. Can you open a doorknob with a closed fist? Probably not. But a lever you can. And actually most people do these things with a draped hand, but a closed fist is a good way to analyze it. Can you turn the little toggle switch on a lamp on with a closed fist? You cannot. So it's requiring tight grasping, pinching, or twisting. That's ADA language. Anything that requires tight grasping, pinching, or twisting, we go away from. I'll show you how we solve the lamp problem here in a minute. So this is the control for the induction cooktop, and we do what's called redundant cueing, meaning we give the cue or the message in more than one way, preferably appealing to more than one sense. So with this, you can see the bright lighting, you can hear it when it clicks, you can see the numbers, you know, the message that I'm on comes to you in a variety of ways. And you can even operate this with a closed fist, as opposed to a knob that you have to turn. You can make this lever work. It's also childproof, so you have to push it in and make it turn first, which would also be good for older people that have any degree of dementia that you don't want turning your stove on. So they thought all this out. This particular line is probably the most expensive appliance line in the world. They have thought out how to do the very best product design, and what they end up with is universal design. This is the finished process. If you think it out, you want to design everything so people can use it, not just an average type of design for an average user, not an average height. We tell the interior design students, we don't want you to be average designers. We don't want you to design for the average. We want you to be excellent designers and design everything universally so all people can use the products. See this little knob down here? Can you see that? It's actually a little lever down on the side there. That controls the sink drain. Now that seems like, you know, a small deal, and it really is to us at this point. It's a convenience if we're entertaining and we're soaking all the dishes. You don't have to, and you have to reach down through all the dishes to get to the drain control. Not here. This is less than a $50 item. You just turn the little knob and the sink drains, you know, which is a convenience for us, but for a wheelchair user that can't reach down into the sink, it's very helpful for a child, for a shorter person. There's some advantages to it. And again, it's a very inexpensive item, costs less than $50. That's what it looks like. It just attaches to the two drains, goes behind the cupboard, and comes out at the little knob up there. Dishwasher has the directions and the controls on the leading edge of the dishwasher. So you don't have to bend down like this and look at what's on the front of the dishwasher. It's on the leading edge. And then as the edge goes down, it comes down to the height of a wheelchair user or a child or a shorter person, or you can leave it up for a tall person like me. That's universal design. Have things that pull out, you know, to get heavier things out into the space. This is the replacement for the little toggle switch that I told you about. One of my friend's fathers burst into tears when someone put this on his lamp. A tiny thing like this, but he'd been calling for help for years to turn the lamp on and off, and now suddenly he can control it. Less than $5. I have this on every lamp in my house. When I go to sleep at night, instead of having to deal with that stupid toggle switch, I go wham, and the light's off, you know. It's wonderful. So you all want this, I'm telling you. Our thermostat is operable by our laptop. So if I'm flying over at 30,000 feet and I forgot to turn my heat off, as long as I can get on the internet, I can control my thermostat. That's a convenience. But if you have reduced circulation, some people will pass out if the space is at the wrong temperature. So now you can preheat or pre-cool your house from a distance. If you're bedridden, you can control it from your bed. A wheelchair user can control it without having to try to reach up 5 feet. You can't lower the thermostat to the 4-foot height because these things are calibrated to only work at 5 feet. Do you see what I'm saying? So you've got to figure out another way to do it. Plus, it controls our energy use in the house. It turns things on and off at the proper times to save energy. This is our shower control, and this again is helpful for people with reduced circulation. Someone that has diabetes or paraplegia can actually be burned by lower temperatures. As they reach into, say, 115, 120 degree temperature, which is what most of these buildings are set at, you can get a burn. And because they have reduced circulation, it can take months for them to heal up from this burn instead of the 2 or 3 weeks that it might take one of us to heal up. So it's very important that you don't have surges of hot water. So this has a pressure reducing mix valve, which is basically a surge control, prevents surges of hot water, and it allows you to preset the temperature before you go in the shower. So it always comes on at this temperature and it gives you a signal when it hits that temperature. It even allows you to set it for other users, which is really nice. So it's a convenience for us now. It's really nice to go into a preheated shower, but it can become a necessity if you develop reduced circulation. By the way, a lot of you know more about these medical things than I do, so if I say something wrong, grab me at the end of the thing and say, you are wrong, Leibrock, or I'll continue to tell audiences this stuff from now on, okay? So give me a break and let me know if I say something you don't agree with. Try to make things usable by one hand. Instead of having to thread a towel through a hoop, you can slip it over with one hand. So one-handed use is another part of universal design. So the next piece is adaptable kitchens and baths. And notice I'm not saying accessible. I'm actually not a big proponent of having one accessible section and one tall section. I think that you really need to design it for the user and make it adaptable from user to user. Now we have sections in our kitchen which a wheelchair user can use if they're going to help me with the prep, so, and I'll show you those in a minute. But 90% of the kitchen is at the right height for me and my husband, but it's adaptable. So for starters, in all of your bathrooms from now on, I want you to put 3/4-inch plywood around the whole perimeter of the bathroom. Not just in the 33 to 36-inch height where you're installing the grab bars, not just the blocking, but 3/4 inches behind the sheetrock all the way through the bathroom. Why? Because people don't grab bars when they go down. They grab whatever's close. It could be a towel bar, it could be a soap dish, it could be a toilet paper holder. They grab what's close, and you want all those things anchored. Plus, you may want to add a vertical grab bar in front of the toilet for men who are standing in front of the toilet. You may want to add a vertical grab bar in your shower, which I use all the time to wash my feet, hanging onto the vertical grab bar. You may want to add a shower seat at a later date if you don't have one. I've built mine in. But if you don't have one, you may want to put that on the wall. Also, it allows you to mount all of your cabinets. And I also do this in the kitchen, so I can wall mount all those kitchen cabinets. And if your splash is part of your counter on top of your kitchen cabinet, the whole thing can be lowered or raised depending on who needs what. It's going to take a small remodel to do it. You may have some finish issues when you drop it down, but much easier to do than tearing out your whole kitchen and starting over. So it's good to put that reinforcement in. If you don't get anything else out of this lecture, remember 3/4-inch plywood behind the sheetrock. You're going to lose 1.5 inches of floor space in each direction. No big deal. Okay, so a few more things from this slide. The seat in the shower. One really neat thing is this is a steam shower. So I push a button and the whole thing fills up with steam. I'll fly back from this trip and be all dried out in the airplane, and it's going to feel wonderful to jump in that steam shower. If I ever need a seat in the shower, I can put a handheld shower in there at a later date. Now I'm already using the seat not only to sit in there and steam, but if you want to shave your legs, you can put your leg up, and it's handy to have that seat. So I think you should think about putting seats in early. Another recessed area rug, so there's no tripping in the bathroom. I'm having a heck of a time with this thing. There we go. This is really a fun idea. These are invisible grab bars. Remember I told you I couldn't get my dad to put the grab bars in because of the stigma, you know? I couldn't talk him into it. I could not talk him into it. But he would have gone for something like this. See those two little tiles that have knobs on them above the toilet? You walk up and you pull one of those off, and it turns out that they're attached to the tile with a magnet. So they're magnets on the back of the tile, and it just holds them in place. When you pull it off, you've got your grab bar support. You walk over, you slip the grab bar on, no tools, no bolts. You just slide it on, pull it down, and you're good to go. To take it off, it's very easy. You put it up, you slide it off, you put the tile back on, and the whole thing disappears. So you really don't have to have grab bars all the time. But after my hip replacement, those long grab bars were a real godsend. Look at how long those things come out, you know. You want something way far out so that you can lean forward and push off. Get your feet back, lean forward and push off. And they even have little knobs at the end that you can hang on to. So they're wonderful. They'll hold hundreds of pounds of force. It's not a problem. And yet, if you don't need them, you have a way of getting rid of them. Here's another idea. I used a very high kick space in the kitchen, a 10-inch kick space. I guess it was 9 inches. And I put drawers in it for seldom used storage, like Easter stuff and Christmas stuff that I don't need to get into very often. But if I want to move all those cabinets down, I pull all the drawers out, and I've got space then. I've got 9 inches of space. So I can take it down to a 36-inch height that most people would want, or even 3 inches lower than that for a wheelchair user. So I could adjust it for the next occupant, whoever buys my house next. That will increase your resale value and allow you to sell to a much larger number of people. Sorry. This is an oven with a side hinge door. These are hard to find. I'm hoping these become more prevalent in the marketplace, but they're really great for all of us because they get that hot oven door out of the way, and you can easily get in there and pull things out of the oven. I even put that little shelf underneath so that I could set hot things down. And this is the space that I mentioned to you where a wheelchair user could say, help me with salad prep. It's 27 inches underneath, which is exactly right for the person to approach. Also, there's certain things I can't do at 42-inch counters. I can't knead bread, for example, because I can't get my weight behind it. So I knead the bread down on this lower surface, and it actually helps me to have that lower surface as well. We have these wonderful pull-down upper cabinets, so even a short person can reach the very tip-top storage. It gives you extra storage that's reachable. And this is one of my favorite things. This is a pop-up lower cabinet. A lot of older people have trouble getting heavy things out from underneath, like a big Mixmaster, a Cuisinart, a blender. You know, it's hard to pull that up. You just pull on this, it pops up, it locks up at counter height. It actually acts as like a little extra counter, a little extension of your counter. Works like a charm. I've got 3 or 4 of these in the kitchen, and I really like them. Let's review. Does your project support health and longevity? Does it make it fun to stay healthy? We've talked about ideas to do that. Is it visible and adaptable to future needs? In other words, does it have an accessible entrance on an accessible route? Does it have usable doors? Does it have light switches, all your controls within reach? That would be 18 inches low, 48 inches high, and operable without tight grasping, pinching, or twisting, and adaptable kitchens and baths. And then finally, will it support a caregiver or an assistant? I know all of you have had family members that were injured trying to offer care to their loved one. I know my mom was injured trying to help my dad off of the toilet at one point, lower back injury that never really healed at her age, you know. It was very difficult. So we have our house designed so we can stay in it for the rest of our life as long as a caregiver can live with us. Now, we had a caregiver living with my mom for about $3,000 a month. Very reasonable. Less than half the price of skilled nursing when my mom needed quite a bit of care. Now, my mom was a nurse, so she knew how to do a lot of things, so it's not really a fair comparison. But what I'm telling you is you can get live-in caregivers for a small amount of money in this day and age. You don't have to pay for 24-hour skilled nurses rotating in to your home. If your home is designed properly to support it, you can save that money. So let me show you some tips. The first thing you have to do is get your clicker working. Hold on a second here. is to have a space that's large enough for a hospital bed. Now, this is my husband's den. These are Murphy beds right over here that pull down. So you can pull these down. There are two of them, so we can use it as a guest bedroom. But with the Murphy beds up, you have plenty of room for a big hospital bed. And then I've put in a gurney-accessible bath. So the nurse can come in, or the caregiver can come in, roll you on to a shower gurney. I think most of you know what those look like. It's like you're on a big net or perforated metal. And you put the person on the shower gurney. You roll back here through this space, which is wide enough for a gurney. This wall here moves. I put it in to divide the bathroom up so it didn't look like a big institutional bathroom, but it swings back. See, it's swinging back. And then you get into this very large bathroom that would allow you to put a 6-foot gurney in there. The caregiver stands there, uses the handheld shower, bathes the person, dries them off, and rolls them back to the bed again. That's one way this bathroom can be used. Another way is with a shower wheelchair. So this shower wheelchair basically has you sitting on a toilet seat. You can wheel right under this vanity. Now that looks too high, and it is. It has 4 screws you take out, and that one section drops out. So it just has right here, that totally drops out. You can pull that out, and then it drops down. We have a pipe inside of a pipe, and it takes you down to the height of the wheelchair user. So you can wheel underneath there, shave, put on makeup. You can wheel over to the shower area. And see, I have all these different shower heads. Now, this was a luxury item that we put in because you get a shower massage. You know, you can set it to pulse on your body, which feels really good. But you can also set it to a lower, to have just one single shower coming out at any height that you want. And then you roll over to the toilet, and since you're sitting on the shower wheelchair, you roll right over the toilet. When you specify your toilet, make sure you use an elongated toilet. I used to tell people to use a regular height, not ADA compliant height toilet, but now we have shower chairs that work over the higher toilets. So that isn't an issue, but the short, normal sized toilet doesn't line up with the shower wheelchair, so you'll miss unless you use an elongated toilet. There's a nice shower, handheld shower there that you could use to clean up, say, after a bowel and bladder program, which is really nice. And we also don't have the grab bars here, but I do have them up now. So a wheelchair user who doesn't want to use a shower wheelchair could also wheel in and transfer in. So you see, this bathroom can be used a lot of different ways. A big mistake I made, I followed ADA, which said use a 2% slope into the drain. Now, it seems like you'd want to use a steeper slope, but you can't because a wheelchair user can't operate on steep slopes, you know, so you don't want to exceed 2%. But with all of these shower heads, with 4 shower heads plus a handheld shower going, I had too much water, so out it was coming. The answer would have been a trench drain all along the front of the shower. That's a trench with a level grate on the top of it to let the water go through. But instead, I tried all these things. I read floor-length shower curtains with a chain weight. Water flows right underneath that. That doesn't work. I tried those half-round crushable things. Have you seen there? Like a half of a pipe, and they're crushable rubber, and the wheelchair wheels right over them, no problem. These things will grab the bottom of your bedroom slipper and throw you onto the floor because they're a great tripping hazard. Then they have these little plastic vertical riser things that stick up that hold the water in, but you can't see them, and they're really sharp, and you step on them, and they cut your foot. So that had to go. All of this was research. You know, they told me to do all these things. I've been teaching people to do these things for 35 years. You know, they don't work. So this is one of the things I learned in designing the house, that, you know, the value of actually trying things out and not necessarily believing our bogus research. Now here's something I want you to do in every sink. I want you to flatten your J Trap. See how it's flat up against the back wall? There is no reason to have a J Trap sticking out in the space underneath. That way it's not going to injure a wheelchair user if it's a hot pipe. it opens up the space for storage for you. Now you can wheel storage in. And see, I just took the bottom out of this cabinet and put the floor all the way back. With the Flatten J Trap, it's totally accessible. I put piano hinges on the doors, so I can close the doors and it just looks like a regular cabinet. And then I have this little cart that I wheel in there for all my storage. With the Flatten J Trap, you just put a horizontal pipe from the drain back to the J Trap. Works like a charm. Every sink should be installed that way. It's just stupid to have that thing standing out and into the middle of the space. So anyway, I get all excited about these J Traps. Sorry, guys. Not much to get me going. Just show me a J Trap. No, I'm kidding. All right. And then finally, see that track up there on the top? It looks like a track for track lighting. That is a track for a ceiling track lift. And I don't want you to go out and put ceiling track lifts in your homes. What I want you to do is to put the reinforcement for a ceiling track lift and put the power in for it to recharge, which doesn't cost much at all, and then add the track and the lift at a later date. Ceiling track lifts like this one are, these are expensive. This is like a $10,000 item. So don't buy the lift until you need it. And it sounds like a lot, but what puts people in nursing homes? It's toileting and bathing. So if you can get in a lift that will drop you into the bathtub, I'm going to be able to soak up to my neck for life in this bathtub because of my ceiling track lift. It's actually a really cool bathtub. It's a tub inside of a tub, and it overflows so that it comes all the way up to your neck, and you can soak in it. And then it'll pick you up, shake you off, move you right over there onto the toilet, drop you on the toilet, and you're good to go. I even have the reinforcement in my bedroom so that I could put a track in there later that would lift me out of bed, take me all the way to the bathroom, all the way to the shower. I cut a slot in the door to the bathroom so that the track will go right through that slot, and I'm all set to add a lift at a later date. So again, you don't have to buy the lift, but think about the reinforcement and the wiring and maybe the track. If you don't want an institutional looking track that hangs down about 4 inches, when you're doing remodeling, go ahead and recess the track. These things are really exciting to kids. My house is like an amusement park. You know, they come in, they jump in the ceiling track lift, and they're off, you know, so it's really fun for them. So just to review, these are the ABCs of universal design that I want you to put in every space. An accessible route, and just put your hands together like this across your chest. Walk through the rooms, and guess what? That's about 3 feet in width. If your elbows are hitting, you're probably not accessible. So that's one way to check it. If you put your arms out like this and you turn around, that's about a 5-foot turning radius. So see if you touch anything. I'd like you to put a 5-foot turning radius in every room. I'd really like you to focus on putting one between the bed and the closet or the wardrobe, because people frequently get dressed in bed. So they need that turnaround there to get their clothing to the bed before they get dressed. Bathroom and kitchens, not totally accessible, but adaptable. So they can be changed to be accessible if you need it. Come on, clicker. There we go. Controls that are within reach, 48 inches high, 18 inches low, and operable with a closed fist without tight grasping, pinching, or twisting. Doors, door maneuvering clearances are tricky. If you can leave a 5-foot by 4-foot or 5 by 5 square in front of every door, you're going to be okay. You can't always do that. If a door swings into a hallway, you actually need a 5-foot hallway for a wheelchair user to operate around the door. So if you don't have the space to do it, you can always use sliding doors or automatic door openers. Electrical, mechanical, acoustical, that sounds like a lot, but there are just 3 things I want you to remember. On lighting, electrical, I want you to use 100-foot candles wherever visual acuity is required. You can get that by putting task lighting, in other words, lamps, in areas where visual acuity is required, and you can put your lighting on a rheostat, you know, a dimmer, so that you can turn it up. Older people frequently need 5 times the quantity of light that the rest of you need. So it's important to be able to get those high light levels. Mechanical, think about that radiant heat that I told you about. That's a great way to heat your house. Wheelchair users are closer to the floor. It's colder down there, so it's nice to have the heat coming up from the floor. Also works great for children. And acoustical, you need to think about both ambient and transmitted noise. Now, ambient noise is the noise that I'm making right here in the room. So to control that, if you put carpet down, that'll control 70% of your ambient noise. A wall of drapery will control 50%. So if you have low hearing, which a lot of people develop, that noise control is super important. Transmitted noise is the noise between this auditorium and the next room. I just leave an airspace in the wall. I use 2 base plates and stagger studs back and forth, so there's an airspace all the way through the wall. That solves your transmitted noise problem if it's going from room to room. And then finally, furniture, finishes, and fixtures. A lot of these things are the same. For example, your furniture height is the same as your toilet height. Have you seen the comfort height toilets that they advertise? I love that. It's not a toilet for the elderly and disabled. It's a comfort height toilet. Who wouldn't want comfort, you know? And that's at the right height, so it's easy to get on and off. And on finishes, we talked about a number of things that will prevent slip and fall, and that's super important. So if you'd like to see any of these images again, go to my website. It's agingbeautifully.org/ranch. And I have about 100 images up there. I have links to all the products that I showed you so that you can get to the manufacturers and buy them locally. I also have a lot of resource information there. I have about a 20-page bibliography of sources. I have books that you can look at. There's all sorts of stuff on that site, so take a look at it. And I have one more thing. I have an inspirational quotation to send you on your way, so prepare to be inspired. I know it's a little late in the day for inspiration, but we shall try. This is a quote by George Bernard Shaw from Man and Superman. "This is the true joy of life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. The being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it's my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a sort of splendid torch, which I've gotten a hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." So go out there, burn brightly, design universally, and God bless. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, hello? We want to thank you all for coming tonight, but what, is this Steve? Okay.
Turn it on. Is the mic turned on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
They can probably hear you, Martha. Just yell.
Can you hear me? Oh, now
you
you
go.
can really hear
Okay.
me. Okay. So, you know, I think one of the things you need to think about tonight and how this lecture was really about design and how a great environment can really make someone feel good about themselves, want to do healthy things. And you as health professionals have some ideas that you can help consult with your clients when they're in need for things. These are really basic things that some people can do, and you are all in positions to now sort of be a little more educated about the environment and really help make a difference in that way. So it was talked a lot about what you can do for your home. It's also what you can do for your patients. So go forth and be great physicians, nurses, doctors, PT, OT, and well educated. Thank you.